This is what I'm going to call a deal talk. So what I want to talk about here is how much should you pay for a used GPU? So on this video, I am only going to be addressing the standard North American market. I am sorry if you are in Germany or England or somewhere else. I can't address those markets. I don't have a fundamental understanding, and I do understand enough to know that it is different to say that this is not universal. This is for US based viewers. So how much should you pay for a used GPU? It's kind of hard to price out used electronics. Gosh darn it! Of course, my phone only starts tweaking out when I am making a video. You gotta love that. So, how do you decide? Right? Like, how do you decide what to pay? So, typically, the easiest way to do this. Now this takes into account normal scenarios. So I have a phrase I call rogue deals. These are deals out of nowhere that just poof, pop up out of thin air that are something like an EVGA GTX 980 classified for $5 or free. For example, those deals do pop up. And I mean, obviously those are best case scenario. But if you're existing in the real world, which I love those deals, but because I collect these GPUs, sometimes when I see one that pops up that costs money, if it's anywhere within the realm of reasonable, sometimes I just have to buy them because I don't know because I collect a bunch of GPUs. I probably have 100 GPUs. I don't know if it's that many. It's a lot though. I mean, I probably have, I don't know, 10 or 15 just GTX 900 series. Barring those types of deals, those insane types of deals, typically what you want to look for is, so there's a few different things you have to look at. There's a few different things you have to factor in. It's almost an equation, and you got to factor a number of things in to actually evaluate a GPU. So the first thing you want to look at is eBay. Now, eBay is not the end-all be-all, and there's a lot of reasons why local purchased GPUs are not worth as much as they are on eBay. But starting point, you go to eBay, you look at, there's an option to look at, when you go to filter, you can select completed auctions, sold auctions. You want to select, I believe it's sold auctions, because you want to see items actually sold. And what you want to look at, so there are three prices on eBay, okay? There are like some tiny percentage of people, five people, 1 in 100, 1 in 2, couple in 100, that got the item at some insane price. $5, I don't know, $5 plus shipping, something dumb like that. You don't even know if those are legitimate auctions, if they were just a kind of a placeholder thing for something, or if they're legit. But you see those, right? That is not what the item is worth. Okay. Then you see like another tiny percentage, sometimes a little more, but a tiny percentage of people that paid way more, like, several 100% more what the average rate is. So you see standard, then super low, then super high. Neither of those prices are what the item you're looking at is worth, okay? What it's going to be closest to is that 95 or so percent of items that all go within, like, I don't know, 5% of each other, something like that. It's a pretty tight margin. They all tend to go within a very tight margin of each other when you're looking at items. Okay, then, so you're looking at that. Now, solid rule is that on the local market, items will be worth less. Do not try to sell me your GPU for eBay prices, because I can go on eBay, and eBay, I don't care how nice you seem. At the end of the day, eBay has an enforceable 30-day guarantee on items that are stated working. If the seller says it's working, it doesn't matter if they say they don't take returns. If the seller says tested working item, they are required to provide you with a tested working item. Now, do not be a douchebag and break an item and then return it, because they will have to return it unless they have some pretty damn solid documentation. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. I would never do that personally. That's just dirty. I wouldn't do that. But you can do it, And that's why I don't sell on eBay anymore, is because of this. But so because of that factor, you've got, and you can use credit cards. Buying locally, you got to use real money. Okay, you got to usually, most people want cash, so you have to actually have the cash to buy the item. That is not the same as being able to just throw it on your credit card. So with eBay, credit card, warranty, guarantee, that kind of stuff, I would not pay unless the item was rare. You know, there are items where the deal is just getting the option to buy the item, but that's unusual. That's kind of like my 980 class or my 980 my 980 Kingpins that I picked up about a month ago. Those were an item that the deal was having an option to even buy the item, regardless of the price. I mean, not infinite, but within a certain reasonability. Aside from those items, you really want substantially less than eBay. You're going to want, depending on how old the item is, what the item is, 1/3 off minimum. I wouldn't pay for a local typically unless the item has really just bottomed out in price. For example, $40 for a 1070, okay? I would take $40 for a 1070 whether it was eBay or local. Okay, you got to use some discretion. Okay, this is not for people that aren't able to use some discretion. Okay, I can't help you if you have zero discretion and zero basic common sense. Okay, use common freaking sense. But typically like 1/3 off eBay prices. But then, like I said, the last thing you have to factor in is it a rare, you know, like this one, this EVGA 980 non-TI classified. It's going to be more desirable than a standard, you know, run of the mill MSI, you know, or Gigabyte or whatever version of the card, or even like an Intel or like a NVIDIA. Back then we called them a reference edition. That's the silver and black cooler. Those aren't going to be worth as much. There's more of them out there. These are more rare. There's a certain collector's value to this. This particular card doesn't have any insane collector's value today. You should realistically be able to find one of these for $50, $60, something like that, $75. But you can sometimes find a run-of-the-mill vanilla GTX 980 for, say, $30, $40. So it just depends. But that's kind of the loose equation. It's not perfect, but if I see, do I have a rando GPU sitting around here? Do I? I do not have any rando GPUs sitting around. Okay, but if I see just a rando vanilla version of a GTX 1080, right? Kind of like the Gigabyte GTX 1080 G1 I picked up there. There's a pretty rando GPU. 8, 9 minutes? Okay, try to keep this under 10 minutes. That GPU, if I saw that GPU on eBay for $90, I would want it for 50 or 60 on the local market. That's kind of my thinking on, because I don't have a warranty, and the fact that somebody says that you can have your money back if it doesn't work, that really isn't relevant, because of the fact that you don't know that word of mouth warranty was good until you've had to use it and they've honored it. Hopefully you don't have to. So I generally say, if we're going to play that game, I would rather you just demo the item up front and then I take it as is, you know. That's how I do my sales, and that's how I would like other people to deal with me. But anyway, I'm sorry I don't have just an exact, you know, 1/3 off eBay. You know, it's not quite that cut and dry, but those are some of the factors that you're looking at when you buy a used GPU, particularly local, or eBay vice versa is going to cost a little bit more because of all of those factors. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion on used GPU pricing, and thanks for watching.